Before we begin, just to introduce Dr. Yen, he's a senior lecturer here at the Engineering Design and Innovation Center. And more importantly, he is also the director, which means he is in charge of the IDP. And so there's no better person to now introduce you to the IDP.
Thank you, Kostas. Let me share my screen. So welcome. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the Innovation and Design Program, also known as the IDP. And so the kind of big things you need to know is the IDP is a place where you can apply the knowledge that you've learned from your primary majors, right? So whether it's electrical engineering, computer engineering, mechanical, biomedical, chemical, civil, whatever, right? And gives you a chance to apply them to real world problems, which are often not siloed, right? So most problems in the real world involve sort of multiple aspects, and when you go out to the working world, you're often working in teams with complementary skills, right? And so this is kind of an opportunity for you to do that, to experience that, where you're going to be grouped together with other students to actually try to solve a problem. So it could be either in terms of a new product, a new service, or a new experience, right? And so it's a project-based learning. So the students will come from all different disciplines and majors. And often we have now students coming from other colleges as well. So for the College of Humanity and Sciences, computer engineering, and we currently actually have some Yale NUS students, but we're looking forward to getting some NUS college students as well, right? So it's going to be very disciplinary and very interdisciplinary, and we're hoping that everybody will get a more interesting experience, and they can develop a solution that is maybe more comprehensive, right? And so it's offered as a second major, so it exists in the unrestricted elective space that Martin talked about earlier. And you can either do it as a major or as a minor. Right? So the minor will take less of the credits. So if you want to do something else, you can kind of do that as well. So what is innovation then? Do you think of it as a kind of a creative design, new invention, technological breakthrough, a new business model, or some sort of irresistible product, right? So these are all different types of innovation. So if you look up different definitions of innovation, they will have something like turning an idea into a solution that adds value from a customer's perspective, feasible, relevant offerings such as a product, service, process, or experience with a viable business model that is perceived and new and is adopted by customers. Fundamental way the company brings constant value to their customers' business or life, and consequently the shareholders and stakeholders. Work that delivers new goodness to new customers in new markets and does it in a way that radically improves their profitability equation. Right? So these are sort of different definitions of innovation, but it is more than just about creativity, right? So in a lot of these things, you notice there's always a customer in mind or a user in mind, right? And so that's usually one of our starting point, which is who is going to be using the service, who's going to be using the product, who is the one that has the problem. And then we need to then look for a solution, right? So using technologies that are effective, so we have to find the right solution. So this is a sort of a problem focused approach, right? So we don't start with the technology and try to look for problems that we can solve. We look at the problem and try to look at what are the technologies that we can bring that will solve the problem, right? But more and more importantly, actually, the solutions have to be sustainable, right? And so this is the last part where we are talking about innovation, where we want to actually make sure that the solution has a viable business model that can actually, be sustained, right? And be profitable, right? And so this is what there are a lot of examples of people coming out with interesting solutions, but because they don't have the right business models, they don't succeed. They're not able to sustain themselves, and so those solutions disappear, right? Because they're just not sustainable. So this is actually now another piece of the puzzle that's very important, right? To learn about how things can actually be sort of solved, but solved in a sustainable way. Right? So this is sort of, a sort of model that we use, right? So what is desirable to users? What is viable in the marketplace? And what possible technologies can we use, right? And this is where we feel that innovation happens here, right? So this is where we try to put all these three constraints in there and try to actually then develop a solution, right? So what is design, right? So this is the innovation and design program. So we talked a little about innovation. So what is design? Well, design is really a process of innovating, right? So, there's a design thinking process, which talks about empathizing with the users, defining the problem and then ideating to try to find possible solutions, prototyping, and then testing, right? And but very importantly, it iterates, right? So you need to actually kind of go through this process a few times to try to find kind of the best solution. And so this is something that we try to kind of give our students the opportunity to experience. Is to actually go through this, process, get to a prototype, get feedback, modify the prototype, iterate, and try to constantly improve, right? Get to the point where you now have something that actually works. And so there are actually frameworks, tools, and methods that we can use to actually sort of train you in these processes. And so you'll be exposed to some of these and learn how you can go about doing this using a kind of a systematic way. And so you will be doing a lot of hands-on projects, right? So a lot of these are sort of theories that you can learn, but you really need practice, right? And so that's where we actually have two major engineering design projects that the students will go through, where you get to work on projects to try to apply some of these principles, right? And so you have practice in terms of all the different steps of this sort of design and innovation process. And again, this is something that's I'm gonna stress repeatedly is different disciplines, right? So again, to form the right solution, you can't really just have, a group of students with just one set of skills. You really kind of need to have complementary skills. And so oftentimes you have sort of engineering students working with computing or science students, but more and more we're starting to see students from other, sort of majors coming in as well, right? They, I think, are also interested in innovation, interested in entrepreneurship, and they want to kind of work with engineering students to try and see if they can kind of develop a solution together. So the students' projects actually have a number of different themes within IDP. So we have a theme on healthcare, where you often work with hospitals, doctors, nurses, therapists, various people in the healthcare community to try to design solutions, right? So this is an example of a group of students working on a robot companion for elderly who are living alone. They actually won sort of a innovation challenge and are actually sort of trying to commercialize. This is a BioTrack. It's an AI-assisted wearable ECG monitor, and so this tries to simplify some of the process of trying to measure ECG in a patient. A lot of wires hooked up and so on. This makes it wireless. And then you have a adipose stem cells harvesting system, and so this is under the sort of theme of healthcare. We have a theme of urban mobility. So this, the students here actually look at improving urban mobility and trying to design some interesting novel vehicles. And so here you have a race car. So it's kind of like a F1 type race car. And they've been doing this for a few years now, and have been doing pretty well. We a few years ago had sort of a big project on developing this electric paraglider trike. And then, right now we actually have a few students that are working on developing batteries for swappable batteries for electric vehicles, right? Under the smarter living theme, we also have students that look into the design of smart devices and solutions that enhance the way we live, work, and play. So here you have a concrete AI, which is a IoT sensor that monitors concrete curing. This is a robot that checks for how even the floor is. So when a contractor has kind of built a factory or some sort of building, they want to be able to check it to make sure that it conforms to the specs and so on, so they can use this. There's a robot drain crawler that can go into drains that are inaccessible to most of us, to actually look for whether there's water that's pooling that could be breeding mosquitoes, right? So these are, again, a lot of projects where typically there will be a lot of different skills that are required, right? So here, the students actually had to use computer vision. There's, had a kind of a challenging mechanical design. They had, to look for ways to actually, put in a lot of electronics, right? So again, it was a very multidisciplinary team that kind of worked on this. Sustainability is now kind of a big sort of interest area. And so we do have quite a number of students working on this as well. So there was a group last year that worked on a smart urban farming solution with Teban Vista, residents from Teban Vista. And there was a group that was working on plastic recycling, and then a group working on low power cooling for small spaces. So these are some of the themes that some of the projects under this theme of sustainable cities. And immersive reality is actually now becoming a very big sort of interest area. So Inkdat, is one of our leaders in this, and he's actually been doing this, before it was so hot, right? So the last few years it's become very, very hot, but he's actually been doing this for much, much longer. So actually, we'll hear later from one of his former students who's actually now, sort of commercializing a solution that they worked on while they were in IDP to use virtual reality for training doctors. They have had students kind of work on using, taking art out of museums and putting them in our everyday environments, using it for training, wushu training, and so on. Right. So there's lots of interesting things they're doing with both virtual reality and augmented reality, mixed reality. For those students who are more technically inclined, we do have some very technically challenging projects. So there are some students have come together to actually build a nano satellite and actually have it launched, and they can actually get data from the satellite and so on. There's a competition for autonomous underwater and surface vehicles, right? And so the group has actually been quite successful, and actually there was a startup company that was launched out of that. And then there's a DJI RoboMaster competition, and so Alvin here actually was part of the team. So they actually, build actually fairly sophisticated robots for competition. So they do have, we have some other teams that are kind of working on the Mars rover and so on. So there's quite a number of kind of competition teams as well. And so in all these teams, it's a multidisciplinary project, right? So you can't just have, electrical engineering students, mechanical, they all have to kind of work together. And so this is a very sort of big theme of IDP. We have a lot of these students kind of coming together to try to solve a problem. So in a lot of these projects, we do work with quite a lot of industry partners. Healthcare, we do have quite a number of projects. We have sort of a logistics company that we're working with. It's kind of a Continental develops sort of automotive systems and so on. Consumer companies, Changi Airport, DSO, town councils, and so on. So we do have a very broad range of partners. We will try, for some of the students who actually come with their own projects, we will try to then link up with some of these partners to see if there's interest or if they can actually provide some information about some of the projects, link them with the right people that they can talk to. And so, because innovation is a big part of our program, we, sort of, our students often are going on overseas programs like the NUS Overseas College, where the students will intern in places like Silicon Valley, Israel, Stockholm, Munich, and various locations in China. And the modules can actually be counted towards IDP, right? So instead of having to kind of do this as an extra sort of a curricular module, you can actually use it towards your IDP major. And we also have a Ideas to Startup module that INTAT teaches. And so this takes actually, student groups who are interested in commercialization through a process where, INTAT will bring in industry partners to kind of give feedback and constantly help the students to try to kind of, refine their ideas, refine their prototypes. And at the end, they actually do a pitch to potential investors to kind of see whether they can actually, get some funding and actually, start their entrepreneurship journey. Right? And so, as part of this, the IDP now actually also has an accelerator program where some of the students are actually supported, for a short time to try to get their companies off the ground. And so, these are some of the companies that, our students have started. And so you will hear from Anthea later on, who's, part of this company. And there are several others here that, you may not have heard of them now, but watch out, maybe they'll be the next unicorn, right? So essentially, the way that you apply, right, the way you kind of get into IDP is that it's offered as a second major or minor and can be paired with primary majors from different faculties or colleges in NUS. So you can actually have students from lots of different places coming together. And so I think Martin kind of explained this a little bit earlier. So if you're coming in through CDE, you will have the common curriculum, and then you have your major, right? So here you could be doing electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, biomedical engineering. But here then you have 40 MCs of unrestricted electives, and some of those then can go towards your second major, right? So you may have kind of one or two more modules left over if you do the second major. But if you want to do something else, then if you do a minor, you can actually then do a few more modules in that space, right? Similarly, if you're coming in from CHS, right, College of Humanities and Sciences, again, you have your common curriculum, you have your major, and then you can do your IDP in this space, right? And so the same goes for business and computing. This is where the IDP can actually kind of fit in, right? And so again, our students are very sort of sought after by companies. So we do have, sort of graduates working at all these different places. And, they are usually, quite successful. We talk to some of these employers and they're all very happy with IDP student graduates, right? So what is the IDP again? So we're sort of a place where students can actually apply the knowledge and skills that they learn from their primary majors to come together to work with students from other disciplines, from other backgrounds to solve real world problems and try to actually apply this innovation mindset to solve, to create new products, services, or experiences. It is sort of interdisciplinary and very much project-based. So this is not going to be a lot of lectures and so on. This is really sort of hands-on learning and practice, right? So a lot of these sort of innovation ideas really need sort of practice. It's offered as a second major or a minor in innovation and design. So the big difference is that if you do this sort of second major, you do 2 engineering design projects plus a few other kind of innovation related projects. If you're doing a minor, you just do kind of 1 engineering design project, right? Plus a few design thinking classes that lead up to that. Right? So how do you apply, right? So if you're interested in one of the engineering majors, so you can select one of them and add the IDP as a second major, right? So if, for example, if you're applying to mechanical engineering, you can then select innovation and design as a second major. If you after you come in, you can always switch, right? So you can even switch your primary major, or you can switch from being a major or to a minor. There's quite a lot of flexibility, right? So you can customize your curriculum quite a bit, right? If you sort of miss that opportunity, or weren't sure, you can always still join us at the end of the first semester or the second semester, right? So look out for invitations to join, and you can then actually join us after your first semester or second semester. For students from other colleges or other faculties, then you can actually just join us after the first or second semester. There isn't really a process for you to select it at admissions, right? But again, if you're keen to kind of join us and want to do something in the first semester, let us know, and we can also kind of include you in some of our activities that we organize for the sort of the students in the first semester, right? And as far as the admission requirement, it's primarily determined by your primary major, right? So if you're applying sort of to electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or biomedical engineering, you just have to satisfy the requirements to get into those programs. For the IDP, it's really not, we don't really have additional requirements, right? So we will take students who are interested and passionate. So the only exceptions are these three majors, where because I think their curriculum is quite intense and quite intensive, so they may not have the space to do this, right? And so there's really no extra requirement to be admitted into the IDP. Those who join admission may be admitted more on a competitive basis, but again, we welcome everyone who's interested to join end of semester 1 or 2. Right? So just wanted to kind of point out that we do have a in-person open house on March 5th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if you go to the sort of CD open house webpage, you should be able to find in here several sessions that you can register for. And so the IDP is in Gallery 4. So if you look for Gallery 4, you can try to register. You might want to move quickly because I just checked earlier, and several of the sessions are already fully booked, right? So I think some of the ones in the afternoon are still open. So, if you are available, do register and come and visit us. We'll have some interesting demos for you to look at, and we can kind of show you a lot more of some of the students' projects. So yeah, this is then just the registration page for this. So this will be the Reimagining Technology Gallery 4. So yeah, if you have any questions, email us. Go check out our website, or you can look for us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And just another thing that I want to kind of highlight to you is we want to encourage you to enter into our lucky draw. So you can go to this QR code here. You can scan this QR code to go to a web page where you can actually enter in some information to register your information with us, so that you have a chance to win some of these prizes. So if we get 150 entries, one lucky winner will get this, and if we get 300 entries, then the second winner will get this. Right? So yeah, that's it. Happy to answer any questions. If you want to find out more, you can scan this QR code to go to our website, or you can check out our website. This link. Thank you.
All right, in terms of questions, we have a few. So I'll just ask them in order. Some student asks, are there certain prerequisites such as H2 math required to take this course? How are lessons typically conducted in the IDP?
So I guess, yeah, for the requirements of the IDP, again, there are more of the requirements of the primary majors, right? So again, I think the new requirement now is that you just need H2 math to actually take any of the engineering programs. And so as far as IDP is concerned, then it's the same, right? So for IDP, we do have a few kind of classes where we teach sort of the design thinking process, but then a lot of the sort of the two major engineering design projects are very much hands-on, right? So, we will kind of, again, take you through the process of how to, talk to stakeholders, how to, try to, define the problem statement, and then how to ideate, how to kind of, converge on a solution, and then how to prototype, right? And then we have people who can help you with the technical, sort of components of the project. Then it's a very hands-on sort of experience. And so there are also some classes on innovation. So I think some of the students here, and Charlene will tell you about this pattern class that she's very excited with. And so there's a number of these other modules that kind of expose you to some of the other aspects of innovation, right? Which maybe a lot of people may not have experience with, things like intellectual property management, venture funding, and all these things, right? So again, these are not going to be the traditional kind of lecture and tutorial type kind of style of teaching. They're a little bit going to be more maybe sort of talking to people who have experience and looking at doing some things a bit differently, right?
All right, makes sense. Thank you. We have another question. What is the workload like? Is it, if it is going to be a double major, especially? So like, what kind of workload would you say?
Yeah, well, I think, it's, I would say that I mean, so maybe the students will be able to kind of answer that a little bit better later on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is going to be, I think, a demanding experience, I would say. I think IDP, I think we really believe that you sort of get what you put in, right? So meaning that a lot of the problems are open-ended, and so you can really push it as far as you want to. And so a lot of that is somewhat fairly open. I think several students here will have experience in the classes that they take where they sometimes actually over design the solutions, right? They make it really cool, make it do a lot of fancy stuff, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes they fail, but I think they kind of get to explore, right, quite a bit in terms of what they can do. So yeah, I think in terms of workload, I think it is technically just some additional modules that you're taking, right? So it's not like you're trying to kind of overload. So again, if you look at the curriculum space, the modules go into your unrestricted electives, right? So you could have taken other classes in that space, right? And so in terms of workload, in terms of the number of credits, it's not going to be additional on top of what you would have to do anyway to graduate. But it's just that, yeah, I think the classes that you take are a little bit more open-ended, a little bit more kind of challenging in a way, that you can actually challenge yourself to do some of these things to the best of your abilities.
And if I may add, as an IDP student, I do feel like because a lot of the classes are project-based, sometimes if you want to do well and if you're really enjoying it, you end up putting more effort into the classes because you like what you're doing, right? Than some of your core mods in whatever engineering major you're taking.
Yeah, I remember Kostof's your group actually did some very interesting designs in your project. In the 2310, they built a little robot that I think they were trying to do something a little bit different, and yeah, I think that was I think it was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. We have actually quite a few questions, so we'll go through them.
Okay.
Is there going to be an extra FYP requirement, or is it the same as the primary major FYP?
No. So if you stay with IDP, so essentially then you would do the FYP with us instead of with the primary departments, right? And so the FYP so the second engineering design project will essentially become your FYP.
Okay, that works. We have another one. How are job perspectives /hired/hiring numbers for IDP students?
I think in general we do very well. So I think Alvin will talk a little about this. Some of our students will also kind of tell you a little bit more about this. We do have a lot of students that go on internships that actually are then offered sort of jobs and so on. And so we do have a lot of projects now with industry partners, and so there is a little bit more kind of contact with companies that potentially are looking out for people. I think some of our students also, when in the process of organizing events, they actually also kind of get in touch with companies and actually get internships and job opportunities that way. So I think we actually do very well. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
And we also have, people like Anthea who, they start their own companies, right? So, so that's the other kind of pathway that some of our students take is become entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's like the IDP dream, right? Taking your
own I think we want to encourage that. I think if people feel really passionate about it, I think we should give them opportunities to go, try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. With regards to that, there's a student who's interested in NOC. So they're asking if they'll be able to join both IDP and NOC at the same time.
Yes, actually, we do have some students. I think, let's see, I don't know if on our panel we have anybody, but yeah, I think we do have some NOC students, also quite a number of NOC students in our midst. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we take it during year 3, semester 2, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so typically I think they will kind of do the first engineering design project and then they go off and they probably then don't do the second engineering design project because that's mapped to NOC, right? And so essentially they will sort of do the first part and then the second part they'll be doing overseas.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, it's quite common. We actually have quite a few NOC students in our midst. Yeah.
With regards to that kind of startup theme, there's another question that asks, will there be more integration with NUS enterprise programs like venture building?
So yeah, I think that is something that we are trying to kind of build some, more integrated programs. So we're looking at a number of things like, maybe even a residential program that's built around enterprise and trying to link up with some of the other programs in the halls. So I think in the residences, they are doing something similar. So yeah, I think, there is a big ecosystem. It's a bit fragmented. I think one of the things that's helpful is that in IDP, you can do a lot of this as part of your course, right? Part of your degree. Whereas I think in NUS Enterprise, a lot of students are doing this kind of outside their degree program, right? So it's kind of an extracurricular thing or a side thing. Whereas I think in IDP, you can actually do it as part of your degree program, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the questions is asking, may I know if there are any certifications that students can get from the IDP program?
Certification. No, I guess it's something that we've looked at a few times. We haven't kind of quite figured out how to do it. We are now exploring some sort of Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange type of certification. So we may kind of go down those lines. But no, so I think the second major will appear in your transcript, right? So you will have kind of that as on your transcript. But other than that, I think a lot of it is really kind of just skills that you learn.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. And then I think the final question for now is, I've heard from seniors that funding is given to develop products and solutions. They want to know what the funding is for. Is it going to be for any open project or just for projects that are in class?
So it will mostly be for the engineering design projects. And so, when the students come together to do the engineering design projects, they'll be then given some funding for the project. And it's done outside class. There are some student groups that are able to get some funding. So for instance, like the Mars rover team, will get some funding, the RoboMaster, I think, has some funding. So there are some kind of student groups, that are doing some of these competitions. They are not actually taking it for class, right? So they're not actually using it as part of their engineering design project. They're kind of doing it as more like a CCA. And they're, some of these groups have their own funding. They manage to get their own funding. So yeah, largely the IDP funding is mostly for the projects themselves, right? For the classes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think before we end this section, I feel like we had a lot of questions. So I think it's fine to wait for like another minute. If any of you asked a question and you felt like it wasn't answered properly or you want more clarification, feel free to ask again, right, or ask for a clarification. And we'll wait for a bit. Right, if you have any more questions, or if you'd like, you can just unmute yourself and ask Prof. Yen directly. I think that would be easier for you as well. Right, so.
I mean, if
Yeah.
some of our students here have something to add to maybe what I said or correct what I said, please jump in.
Okay. It doesn't seem like there are any more questions coming in. If you do have questions later on, feel free to ask them, and we can still refer them to Prof. Yen because he'll be here throughout the next panel. So I think we'll move on. We'll go on to the student panel from now. So I will share again. Once again, in case you don't have it, here is the Pigeonhole QR code as well as the passcode. Let me just send it on the Zoom chat once again, just making sure that if you have any questions, it's really easy for you to ask. So moving on, we'll be having a student panel with 5 different IDP students at different stages of their learning journeys. Actually, one of them who has finished their IDP course and is now the CEO of their own startup. So these speakers, I'll just introduce you to them. They are Sherilyn Ko, a civil engineering student in year 4, Anthea Fung, a biomedical engineering student that graduated last year, Alvin Ben Abraham, a computer engineering student in year 2, we have Ongkok Chung, an environmental engineering student in year 5, and Benjamin Chan, a computer engineering student in year 4. So whatever types of questions you may have and how they relate to your majors, I feel like we have a great range of panelists who can answer those questions. So without further ado, I will hand over the stage to Dr. Koo, who will go over and moderate the panel. All right, take it away.
Thanks, Kaustaf. Can we just spotlight the speakers? Hi, everyone. Welcome back again.
Spotlight for everyone.
Right.
Spotlight.
Okay.
That's spotlight.
So we have 4 students and 1 recent graduate in this panel. All right. Perhaps could start by asking you to maybe just give a very brief introduction and also share your IDP experience so far. And like, for example, what kind of modules you've taken, what you enjoy most in this journey. Yeah. Anyone?
I can start first. So I joined IDP because, well, at this point, there were 3 different pathways. One is a practicing professional pathway, and the one is research focused, and finally IDP. The other 2 were interesting, but they didn't really resonate with me as much. I felt like IDP had a lot more going with what I was interested in, which is about entrepreneurship and trying new things. So I definitely went that way. I think after I joined IDP, I think similar to everyone, year 1, sem 2, then I did EG 2310, which is one of the starter modules where I met a lot of good people. Those same people that I met came with me together for the next few modules in IDP, EG 2301 and EG 2301R. So currently I'm doing this year-long project in 2301R, which is where I'm right now. So yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, I think I'll go next.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Shelin from year 4 civil engineering. So I took IDP because I wanted something extra out of civil engineering. So yeah, I've taken the standard IDP projects, like your group A modules, your group B modules, group C modules. Yeah. Do I need to explain anymore?
That's okay. Yeah. If there's any things that is unique about some of these modules, how does it make it extra special for you?
Okay, so I feel like the IDP modules has really enhanced my skill sets because it really allowed me to learn many different things. So for civil, I'm just restricted to theoretical civil knowledge. But with IDP, I've learned a lot in the startup space, which I was really interested in, and also on projects and stuff. So I've also from IDP learned a lot of things like software, which I did not expect myself to learn.
Very nice.
I'll jump in next.
Go ahead.
My name is Kok Chong. I'm a year 5 environmental engineering student, and from what I heard just now in the pigeonhole questions and things like that, I think this session has a lot more people asking about like NOC, about like on enterprising stuff and things like that. And yeah, I think Anthea will be our best person to ask because she just went through NOC. But like at the same time, like I would also like to add that like I applied and I got NOC Sweden, but I rejected it. So yeah, that's also one of the things that, I mean, if there's anyone who want to ask anything about it, yeah, sure, feel free to. At the same time, I think that I think IDP is not necessarily just all about startup. I think there's also a lot about like corporate innovation. There's also a lot about like understanding how we can do transformation for, be it digital or not, for certain like kind of like verticals and things like that, and industries as well. So yeah, feel free to keep your questions in. I think my best IDP experience will be like actually all the way from the start, like how there is like IDP camps at the start. That is like back in the days, right, where like COVID wasn't there yet. And like, yeah, I think those were fun. Community building and a lot of other things, and like just building things together in the lab. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll go next. I'm Benjamin, year 4 computer engineering student. So throughout my entire IDP journey, what I have learned so far was like I took design thinking modules, case studies for engineering, and that actually led up to our design project, which my design project revolves around building an intelligent system for the bird park. So this project itself is quite an eye-opener because we actually work with industrial partners and we really do real-world testing on the product itself. So currently what I'm doing is I'm doing the testing phase for my final year project, and I hope eventually we could actually have some kind of commercial innovation in this area. Yep.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead next. So I'm Anthea. I was from biomedical engineering, actually just graduated last year, 2021. So for me, I began my IDP journey, say around 2018. So why I decided to embark on it was very similar to actually Alvin as well. I definitely felt that the entrepreneurship pathway was definitely more in tune with what I wanted to do in the future. So it has always been like an ambition of mine to start my own company, to create a biomedical solution, something that can help the medical community, how best to actually achieve the most impact in the quickest and fastest way and things like that. Yeah, so IDP was a very natural path for me to take. I think I did quite a bit of homework myself at the start, although it was initially daunting because it was the first time it was presented as a double major. So in my head, I was constantly thinking, oh my God, do I have to do like extra modules? Do I have to put in more effort? Will I be able to manage my core major in the first place? But I can safely say that even though most of the time I'm doing a whole bunch of other things besides studying, I managed to succeed and graduate fine. So to the students who are interested in embarking on IDP, don't worry, it's definitely going to be very fulfilling. And as to modules that I took, so like Coach Chong mentioned earlier, I'm very much into the entire startup space. I would say that myself and my team that went through the entire journey with me for about 3 years. We managed to unlock all the different IDP milestones, completing the first design thinking module, doing the DCP project together, and then after that going to ideas to startup, EG 43018. So we basically took that one project all the way from start to end. And currently we are spinning off and creating our own startup, the MediVR. So yeah, we have a lot of, I guess, different expertise and a lot of experiences. So I actually didn't go for NOC, but a teammate of mine went to NOC Stockholm. And then after that, we actually continued the IDP Accelerator, which is a continuation of the pre-accelerator module. So I think if you're interested to find out more about this, you can definitely probably speak to me, speak to Prof. Gu as well, Prof. Yen, or you can actually search up, I think, the IDP website as well. So in the pre-accelerator module, it really helped us open our eyes to a lot more about the startup space. There were a lot more connections, a lot more support from the IDP department as well. And yeah, I think you can actually map it or like take this on to a lot of NUS enterprise programs as well. We went to venture building as well as NUS Grip after as well. Yeah. So yeah, all in all, very, very fulfilling experience. Yeah. Over to you, Prof. Khoo.
Thanks, Anthea. I think there's probably many questions from the students about the startup and entrepreneurship. We'll give them the opportunity later to ask more questions. And one thing I think we all can agree is that IDP is a very interdisciplinary program where I guess all of you have worked in your teams where you have team members coming from different background, could be from different majors or sometimes even different school or faculty, right? That you have in the same team. And I maybe have this question that's more maybe specific, maybe I'd like to address it to Shalene and Kok Chung, right? I mean, as Shalene, you are civil engineering major and you're trying to do something extra and into getting into software, and of course this is a growing area, right? A lot of us different sectors also need software and IT development skills. So, and also for Kok Chung, you're environmental engineering and you're going into understand that you are working on projects on using robotics into a healthcare sector. So maybe Shalene, and then maybe after that Kok Chung, you can share your experience of how you could look at, use IDP as a way to kind of and extend your area of experience beyond your primary major.
Okay. So funny thing, so Kok Chung was actually my OGL when I went for civil engineering camp. Yeah. And even at that point of time, I was like, should I get out of civil engineering? Because I don't think it rightly fits into what I want to be doing. And he didn't tell me he was in IDP. Okay. So I just coincidentally joined IDP and saw him inside. But so going back to the point of like civil not really being what I want to fully do, I think IDP really gives you the opportunity to explore like different avenues. So like there's so many modules you can take in IDP. I kind of regret not taking the radar and satellites part and doing the design thinking instead, but it's fine in the end. So there's that, and as I was saying, like software. So I wouldn't have started web development at all if I didn't have this as my final year project. And actually, I was actually looking forward to something like this, like exploring software, but not exactly being in a computing program. Yeah. So I think this really gives you the flexibility to do what you want. And also for like the Group C modules, you get to choose like, I think I can't remember exactly, but there's 3 different categories of the Group C modules. So those are really interesting also. Yeah. So I've taken more of the finance and maybe startup route for my Group C modules. So I started to better understand startups, and hopefully I'm currently thinking of getting like a venture capitalist kind of role. Yeah.
Very nice. You could speak more to Anthea. She will give you a lot of advice and sharing her experience. Nice. That's great. Thanks, Shalene.
Yeah.
Kok Chung?
Yeah, I like to echo Prof. Khoo's point about. I think speaking to Enter as well. I mean, not to put her in the spotlight, but like I feel like as an engineer, as an engineering student, right, and being trained in engineering, like biomedical engineering, it's not easy to come out and be a CEO. I think being a CEO requires a lot more management skills and whatnot that you really need to like pick up on the side. I think that's a lot of like stuff that you really need to like really learn on your own and make sure that I'm pretty sure she had a very, very good journey. So also apologies that I thought she went for NOC, but yeah, you can tell that she has the caliber of NOC now. And then I think on top of that, yeah, I like to also share about like like what Prof Ku mentioned, right, about the entry into like a different sector like healthcare, and also something that's very, very different from whatever that we are doing. So of course, in environmental engineering, I learned a lot about like wastewater, I learned a lot about air quality, I learned a lot about soil management and things like that. But I think when you switch lens and you actually try to like look at a different problem statement in an industry they are completely new about, that's where you fall back to your skills and your thinking mindset and things like that. And that's where design thinking comes in, right? Not everyone can be as lucky, sorry again, Anthea, not everyone can be as lucky to be like, oh, you are a biomedical engineer and then you go into a field that is, literally your forte, and being able to actually explore that part, put what you learn in like textbooks and different modules into practice. For us, I think it's also a lot about like, yes, also putting like a lot of skills that you already have. Like, previously we were trained in design thinking mindsets, we were trained in like problem solving mindsets, we were trained in like many different things like idea iteration and things like that, which are skills that you will definitely need. And no matter which kind of like problem that you're facing in the end, that's where you can get to actually tackle them, use these skills, and also be able to actually formulate a better like kind of like not just a solution that is based on like what the industry needs, but also solution based on what really the problem really tries to that the problem that you're trying to solve is really like requiring of. So I think that's where we all understand that like despite it being like a completely different vertical, it's something that's new, but you have experts to talk to. Like for us in the healthcare robotics project, we got to speak to clinicians, we got to speak to like other like robotics provider who are already serving in the healthcare scene. You get to understand all these aspects of like problems that they are really facing, and then from there, that's where we identify more discrete and also more narrow pinpoints that's where we can get to like target further. So I think it's really about understanding different verticals. Take this time to like really also explore something. You not necessarily need to be something that you're extremely familiar with, but try to understand how your skill set can come in to actually better solve this problem as well. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Coach Chung. I guess it's really, it's a very, very good sharing. I think it's like this sharing what you just mentioned, like understanding the vertical, talk to your customers and try to understand their problems, and then and try to see how you can apply your understanding, your experience into that area. I think that is perhaps a part that would be quite I think the rest would would also probably have gone through that itself, right? It's kind of a really design thinking, problem solving as a kind of core of the experience you get, and that's also the skills that how you apply into trying to talk to different customers to identify the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And yeah, it's great. It seems that so it's actually not really a kind of do you see any hurdles or challenges along the way where you are not really from the primary major, you need to kind of upskill, you have to kind of pick up different kind of skills along the way, right? Talking to different people that you may not be familiar from your domain, or picking up new skills like software, right? So what do you think, how's the journey is like for you so far?
I think the best person to answer this question will be Benjamin, because he have no idea what bird are looking for at the start. And I think that he will be the best person to answer this. So yes, I will pass my time to Benjamin.
Yeah, Benjamin, you may, yep. It's I think you're working on a very, very interesting project that's not normally computer programmers or engineers don't normally work on. Maybe you want to share, what you're working on, the problem you're working on, who's the partners, and how's your experience working on the project?
Okay, so my project is actually creating a intelligent bird monitoring system, and my partners is actually Singapore Zoo, or the Wildlife Reserve Singapore. So I started on this project 2 years ago, whereby our partners from the Singapore Zoo brought in an idea. So basically, it was an idea started from them, from the commercial side, and it felt like they need some kind of innovative solution whereby students can actually come up with crazy ideas to really improve the work processes within the zoo. So by accepting this kind of like propositions from them, we went ahead using our design project as a way to understand the problems, going to the Jurong Bird Park to like meet up with the keepers, meet up with the veterinarians, to really see how are the day-to-day lives like for the stakeholders. So from there, then we can actually sort of filter out what is the key pinpoints that they are required to solve, and how can we envision a intelligent system in the future, or whether it's like a smart zoo kind of idea. So I think what I actually learned a lot from this thing, besides just about handling the birds, is also like managing our industrial partners. Because what happens is that basically they gave this project to us. We are all, as students, we are quite clueless actually, because we do not know much about birds. We do not know much about the design thinking aspect yet, but we actually just persevere on, and what we did was, using the design thinking framework that we learned, we slowly try to filter out and then repropose back to the collaborator. So he needs to be able to manage the expectations on what the students can deliver, and whether or not as an entire group itself, including the partners, are we comfortable with the vision. Going to the part about the birds, what I think is very interesting is that as I'm working on the project, I felt that there was this thing called Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong can really go wrong. For instance, when I put my device into the test site with the birds, there is a particular bird, it's a cockatoo, that will bite off the wire. They will really destroy the cameras, and then make me lose 1 week of footage. And then when I go there and look at the cockatoo, he will just grin at me. So all these kind of things are quite interesting. You really will find out and discover along the way. So whichever project you choose to embark on, have an open mind. And then also, what I feel is you need to really take ownership of it, take a lot of initiative to really find out more. If let's say you don't have enough resources, talk to the prof, talk to someone that you know. Maybe you can, for me in this case, I brought in some kind of design students to potentially come up with a promo video, which I can use once again to promote back to the upper management and my partners to sort of take flight within Singapore Zoo. So I think that is currently what I'm doing right now. So I hope I actually addressed the question. Yep.
Great. Thanks, Benjamin. And yeah, well said. What goes wrong will go wrong, right? And I guess that's something that I guess resonates with many IDP students. But I guess those also a very key experience, right? You learn, to kind of because you work on very hands-on project, and this is where you are faced with all kind of challenges, and you have to really make it work and demonstrate it to the partners, right? And I guess that could be very, very meaningful. And maybe that also leads me to a kind of my questions on maybe on soft skills, where it's on like teamworks, on the demonstration and presentation skills, which I think IDP focus a lot on. And I guess maybe with that, can invite you all to share some of your experience as well. What are the soft skills that you learn, and how has that helped you, in terms of in doing your project, or even just in your professional journey to your career, right? So maybe could I invite Alvin to start first?
I think definitely soft skills is very important in IDP. I mean, in a lot of other fields, we are all in our primary major, right? So we all know what we're doing. We're all on the same page. But here it's very different, because a lot of us have different domains of knowledge. And so when we come together, often we don't know if the other person's the exact subject matter. So I think there needs to be a lot of collaboration and compromise to make sure things go ahead. I think I mentioned this before, but for IDP, one common term that I heard during my first module is called Bogart, which is a bunch of guys around table. Right? The idea here is when different people have different stakeholders, they have different goals and visions and approaches, they just come to a table, throw all their ideas there, then they just hash it out. Right? It's a way for different parties with different subject skills to kind of come together to form a final vision and mission which aligns with the entire group. So I think that's one important thing. For IDP in general, almost every project that we do requires a full-fledged plan, all the way from finding a problem to validating that problem and maybe finding the solution to that problem and making it a reality. Throughout this entire phase, you're dealing with multiple stakeholders, professors, industry partners, a lot. So in terms of soft skills, even if IDP wasn't interested in it, or you're not interested in it, you'll have to learn it along the way, because if you don't, you can't succeed. So I generally think that in terms of soft skills, you're definitely learning a lot more in IDP compared to your primary majors, because over there the focus is on technical solution skills. Here is about actually solving problems for customers and solving problems for real people. So yeah, soft skills, I think it's one big part that defines IDP.
Thank you. Thanks, Alvin. Anyone want to add to that?
Hi, Anthea here again. So if I could add, I definitely would on this whole point of soft skills. So I think Alvin started by saying that soft skills is essential for IDP, definitely essential for the working world. And I think there is no better place to hone such skills than in school itself. So school or uni or NUS is really like a safe space. You have all your friends to help you. You have your peers, your professors, just constantly there to guide and make sure that you're on the right track and that you're doing well, you're improving and things like that. So I believe that this is the perfect time for all students to just jump into it and embark on anything especially that you find passionate about. So in my case, for my team, we were working very closely with doctors. But obviously, even though there were a few of us who in biomedical engineering, some from mechanical engineering, none of us were really trained medically. So we were honestly quite fearful at the very, very beginning when we were knocking on the doors or like sending emails to the doctors. What we did was when we actually got a session with the doctors, we actually wrote out an entire script of like, oh, word for word, what should we say, how should we talk, what kind of like, how should we be sitting with the doctors and things like that. We even went to medical library just to pore over textbooks to speak their lingo and things like that. And I think there is no other opportunity in NUS engineering other than IDP for you to actually spend so much time just to brush up all these like industry expert stakeholder management skills. The other thing will be internships. So in IDP, we managed to choose internships very much related to startups, to our projects. So my team, some of us went to a virtual reality simulation startup. Some went to a virtual reality startup itself that recently actually got acquired by Meta as well. So all of this opportunities and pooled resources will really help you build your product and build the skill sets that your team will need. And I think one other very important skill set that I would like to mention will be how to work together with your team. Because like Prof. Koo mentioned earlier, there are many skills that your core major might not give you or might not like give you the opportunity to hone in that sense. So there are a lot of things that you have to pick up by the side in IDP. And although you have either a 6 months or 1 year project to complete, a lot of times, maybe half of it will be spent learning new skills. So for example, I think we have some students here who are trained in, let's say, civil engineering, but they have to pick up software skills. So you need to basically work together and make sure that you can cover all the grounds. While your friend or while your peer is probably learning or picking up some new software skills, you could be actually managing stakeholders or doing the product management side of things or doing the design, the UX. And I think this essentially is how we will all go into the working world in the future. So yeah, I think it's very, very good base for us to build from our year 2, year 3, year 4 even.
Right. Thanks, Anthea. And I guess one thing in common, that in all the sharing here is that, there's the skill to kind of engage with the different stakeholders, to talk to the customers. And in many of cases here, you all got a chance to work with the company, like industrial collaborators, and some of you got a chance to work with an internship as well. That's where you actually get to really understand, the perspective from the companies and trying to work together with them to understand the problem and then see how do you derive the value, right, of your solutions that you can address their concerns or problem. Right, so I guess that's oftentimes a common theme that we've seen that the different IDP students projects go through, and I think that's really a very practical way of trying to look at innovation and design, right, where you actually work with the actual customers, actual problem, and then you try to solve it. Right, I think that's great, and Perhaps, NT, I think there's a lot of questions earlier about startup, right? So maybe, and there's questions about, whether you have programs here, like for example, you shared that in IDP, we have a pre-accelerated program, which is the FYP that, you could do to kind of take your invention and try to go into a startup. And then we also have the accelerator after the graduation, but at the same time, NUS Enterprise to have other programs. I guess, NTR, you did went through quite a number of them, and you kind of succeed through kind of graduated from many of these programs and managed to get more resources. Maybe you wanted to share maybe a quick kind of tips or sharing to the the fellows younger students who are intending to pursue a startup route.
Okay, so before I talk a little bit about the entire journey, I have two very important tips I think I would like to offer to the students here and potential IDP students definitely. So the very first one would be to really stay passionate about what you're interested in. Given the opportunity, as long as you're passionate about something, I believe you will be able to succeed and really make a difference in whatever you are embarking on. And the second thing will be to really treasure all the connections you make, because I think in our IDP journey, we really met a lot of different people who helped us in so many different ways that I won't even be able to summarize. So really, to name a few, it will really be like Prof. Koo, for example, the other IDP professors, the support, and even the connections that we made through our internship journeys. Even reaching out to NUS Enterprise and also Enterprise Singapore. So all of these different bodies and people can actually help your team a lot in terms of your funding, in terms of support, in terms of building the connections to reach out to even more industry experts. Also, a lot of connections where you actually get to learn from previous startup founders. So people who have experience in success and failure especially. So in our case, we really took all the different IDP modules from design thinking to ideas to startup, to DCP project first to ideas to startup, as well as now the IDP Accelerator, which supports our team through provision of stipends and the virtual reality lab. Yeah. So during our, the startup module in particular, maybe if I could mention that, we got a lot of industry experts coming to class to share with us about different areas of the startup industry, different angles that we should take note of, even inspiring sessions like telling us that, oh, you might face difficulties or challenges, or people might judge you, oh no, startup, you don't earn a lot, right? It's very challenging, right? Are you all making money? Do you all have customers and things like that? But building that community and knowing that they are there for you and there are so many people who are willing to help you, I think that is very important. During the module, we also got the chance to speak to lawyers, patent lawyers, and industry experts in that field. I think normally you will have to pay a lot to talk to lawyers, right? But in our case, we really managed to get a lot of insights there. So really, even though during IDP at the start, we hadn't had the chance to incorporate, but prior to incorporation, we were definitely very ready. So I definitely thank IDP for this opportunity. And maybe if I could add a little bit further, once you're out of IDP, that's not the end of the journey. NUS will still be here to support you. So we managed to go to NUS GRIP, as well as Venture Building Program, to eventually pitch and go through their accelerator programs, get funding. So that is very, very important for companies to build the products and prototype at the start. So yeah, I definitely encourage anybody to continue and come on board this journey. Feel free to reach out to me or MediVR as well, and we can definitely share a lot more about how we can help and share more about our journey, definitely.
Very inspiring. Thanks, Antia. And if one thing I pick up from your sharing is that be part of the community, build a community and grow the community. I think that's really something really. And once you have the community, I think magical things would happen. right? It's not so lonely in your journey. They often say startup journey is very lonely, it's very painful, but with the community, it just makes things easier, right? That's great. Thanks. And maybe just to get to wrap up the panel, perhaps I could get the other speakers also to share. Maybe you can give one advice. What advice will you give to the prospective students who are considering or wanted to join IDP? Yes.
A very quick answer to that. Sorry, I come in. Don't hesitate, just join. Yeah, because if you think too much, right, then you may start doubting yourself. So just join. Yep.
Thanks, Benjamin.
I would I would give a more balanced approach to that. I would say that ultimately, as Prof Yen has shared earlier, now IDP can either be a minor or can be a major, right? And as a major is a second major, and second major will mean that it's like what 50 plus 60 plus MCs, and that is not a workload that is for fun. So ultimately, I think that IDP is something that it will be good if you do I think you should consider it, and you should think hard about it first. I mean, yes, it can be like a kind of like a backup plan at whatever it is for you. But at the same time, I feel like it should be something that you think about. What can you gain out of it? Like, what can you learn out of it? And I think it's also about like what kind of like stuff do you really want to add to your entire plate of 160 MCs, right? Because like you can go through like the professional pathway and you really like also take out a lot from it as well. IDP gives you a different side of the coin. So it really depends on whether you think this side of the coin is important to you as well. Because I would put that perspective out there that I don't think IDP is for everyone. So I think that's something that is a very, very good caveat that if it's for you, please do join. Like what Benjamin said, right? Join in a heartbeat, right? Just like, whoa, go for it. But if it's not for you, and if it's something that you think you might want to take up, please consider it. And if it's really not for you and not something that you want, yeah, I mean, sure, there are many other good programs out there in NUS as well. So like, yeah, feel free to make that your choice. Ultimately, it's 4 years. It's your 4 years. So think hard and also think about what is best for you as well.
That's a very good advice, Koh Chong. And that's right. And I think one thing you mentioned is really, in any case, you need to really put in effort, right? So you need to be committed to what you want to do. And obviously, IDP being a project-based learning, and there's a lot of commitment in terms of working together in the groups and solving problems, right? So you need to be committed. So yeah, it's very good advice. And also maybe I'd like to kind of bring back one of the key points that Koh Chong mentioned much earlier in the discussion as well. IDP is also not only for startup, right? But there's also other angles like corporate innovations. Kind of looking into what can you do for kind of helping the corporates in various areas as well, right? Got an opportunity to work for with companies on different projects as well, besides startups, right? So that's great. Maybe you can move on.
Sure.
Go next. Yes, Christoph?
Yeah, no, actually we have some questions. We actually have one question so far. I just want to remind everybody who's here that if you have any questions, please feel free to go to the pigeonhole and ask any. And I think there's a question for Kok Chung right now.
Okay.
So a student is asking, can you share with us why you rejected your Sweden NOC?
Oh, actually, the answer is quite simple. Like for me, I feel like the experience wouldn't be as good for me to like take the Sweden NOC in like Singapore itself, because at that point in time it was at like the prime of COVID. So like it got nothing to do with like NOC itself. It got nothing to do with like IDP curriculum. It's actually just a pure personal preference where to me it's just that like I think the experience would be better for me to just be in Singapore and also work on like particular problems that I really like to solve in Singapore itself. So that SEM that I didn't go for IDP, I actually took EG 3301R, and I did that disinfection robot thing, which it was also a very good experience on my own.
Okay. There don't seem to be any more questions for now, so I guess we can just continue with the guiding questions.
Yes, mindful that this meeting will end at 4, so we have 2 more minutes. Maybe a quick one from yep. From the rest, Alvin, Shalin.
Okay,
Okay. You want to go first?
you first, you first.
Okay.
You can wrap it up.
Sure. I think that IDP, I think something Kok Chung said that it is you do require a certain amount of passion, I think, to thrive in IDP. I don't think that it's for everyone, but I think that if you just want to come to university and just have a very easy and chill time, then perhaps IDP isn't the way to go. But I feel if you want to learn something and have fun while doing it, make a lot of good connections and friends, and maybe have a better chance of success, I think this is definitely the pathway to pursue on. In terms of IDP, it might seem challenging from the start, but I think like what Benjamin said, I think you should just go for it, because the community and friends you make along the way will make the journey much more easier. I think something I read recently is that a moment of pain is worth a lifetime of glory, which I think is very true. Not everyone cares about their lifetime of glory or whatever comes after. But if you do care about the experience and making friends and doing something really that you're passionate about, like what Anthea has mentioned, it's all about the passion. And I think you should come here. And I think it will be really a great experience for you. But do try to find that passion. Try to think for yourself what you want to do here also before you come. But I think if you do, you'll find a really good community here. People who will stay with you no matter what. Yeah, I think that's it from me.
That's it. Thanks, Alvin.
Okay. If that's it, then thank you all speakers so much for sharing with the students who are here
I
today.
think Charlene wanted to share, right?
No, it's okay. Do we have time? Okay, I'll
We have
just
a bit.
You can.
basically, I spontaneously applied for IDP like 2 hours before the deadline. It's very tough. I overloaded every semester, and you need like much more time than your other mods, especially for me when I'm like learning something entirely new. But I know that like if you learn this well, it gives you the confidence that you can like overcome anything. Yeah. So it's really very rewarding. Yeah, that's all.
It's great. Thanks, Shalin.
Okay. I think with that, I'll just share the socials. So if anybody who's here would like to follow and find out more, you can go to our LinkedIn or Instagram. Also refer to our website. There's an NUS website for IDP. I think, yeah, that's all. Thank you all so much for speaking and sharing with the students who are here today. And thank you to students for attending and learning more about the IDP.